Welcome to Bloom Full Color, where we live life in high definition. Jennifer Moss, Adam Thompson, and we did put out to the Facebook groups. What do you guys want to hear about? And the topic of conversation lately has been bugs.
I thought you were just punishing me. I didn't.
No, I wasn't.
Like
I wasn't actually punishing you. So, I'm getting asked constantly about like, how do I battle aphids? What about budworm? Oh my gosh, caterpillars. Like, I mean, insert problem here. Earwigs has been one lately. It's really fun to describe diatomaceous earth and how it slices things open too. So I really enjoyed that.
Metal.
It's a little bit morbid, and I didn't care because bugs don't bother me.
I wonder if there's like a microscope artist, because this is becoming a thing that like has that like diatomaceous earth. Like
that would be so cool.
Let's look into that.
Okay. Okay. So the title of this podcast is Know Thy Enemy. So when we had asked this, so the first thing I got to tell you, legally, myself and Adam are required to tell you that any chemical, insecticide, herbicide, pesticide that you use, you must follow the label instructions. Yeah. By law, we're required to tell you that. So we've covered our bases. Check. Use your brain. Okay. And also follow the label instructions. Don't go twice as much will help. That's not how it works.
Insert a little plug rant here.
Yeah, go for it.
When those chemicals are studied in a lab, they are studied at that concentration. If you are varying from that concentration by adding too little or too much of the product into water, for instance, you are essentially, it's a mixed bag of how you're going to get. They didn't study that chemical at those concentrations. So they don't know the effects of the residual activity. They don't know necessarily the harmful effects on humans if, say, you mix your Roundup at like 4 times the rate, which my father was known to do. And I finally sat him down and I said,
grandfather did the same thing.
Chemistry 101 lesson, more is not more.
That doesn't, okay? That's not how it works.
That's all I want to say. That's exactly why we are required, but I also want to tell you, just follow the label.
Well,
that mixture is the way it's supposed to be applied.
And that mixture
just
is
do that.
To that chemical at that point in its life cycle. When it's at its half-life, it has different things going on.
Exactly.
And so that's more chemistry 101. So that's why it's really important to follow that.
And that's a good note is like check your expiration dates on things. Take your pesticides, your insecticides, your chemicals to hazardous waste to dispose of them properly. Do not put that kind of stuff in your garbage can. Like you need to be realistic about dealing with chemicals.
Yeah, because it's still a chemical.
Everything's a chemical, sure. But like
even organic things are chemicals.
Pesticides are intense and they are very harmful to humans when they're not used appropriately. So
and they do go into the groundwater if you're not handling them properly.
Exactly. So let's be earth conscious. It was just Earth Day a couple days ago.
This is going to come
filming,
out. Yeah, this is going to come out in the mid-May. So
anyway, just be wary.
Okay. Life cycle of a bug. That's the first thing we need to start with. Okay, so you have egg, larva, teenager, adult, right? Those are the 4. All right, no chemical is going to kill everything.
No.
That's not how it works. And in order to control a problem, you're going to have to hit 2 to 3 life cycles. Am I right?
Yeah.
That's what I was taught in master gardening.
Yeah.
Even though that's kind of a bad word in a garden center.
At the very least 2, your adult stage and your egg or your larval stage.
Yeah. And your teenager adult, you can kind of hit sometimes. It depends on the bug and it depends on what you're applying and in what plant you're applying it to.
Yeah.
Like if you're putting horticulture soap or oil onto an aphid and it's a teenager adult, that applies to both. That can suffocate both, but it's not going to touch an egg.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you. So.
Will it not?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'll be fair. I was not prepared for this.
We are also filming this the last week of April.
Education without an entomology course.
How did you manage that?
Surely it wasn't the fault of the institutions. It really, what it was an elective for me, and it never fit into my schedule. And I hit school pretty hard, so it just never fit in. And
you did.
I made it into a botany degree without having any coursework in
entomology
bugs. So that's a little like higher level nerdy than what I could tell you. But As far as gardening, yeah, like we can get into that. If you want to start on a bug or how
So
you want to,
easy
there's so
thing.
much to talk about here. It's
yeah.
infinite.
So there's so many things. So let's see if we can dive into. Do you know much about budworm?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so what budworm is? All right, so
everyone's asking.
Everybody's asking about budworm. Okay, so obviously it was probably a bad budworm. What is budworm? So when you have a beautiful blooming petunia crop, and all of a sudden you have no blooming petunias, and you have green plants, and you're going, "Holy crap! What happened to all of my flowers?" Well, then the next question I ask people is, "Do you see little white butterflies around?" They're like, "Well, yeah, everywhere." I said, yeah, you had budworm. So they started as caterpillars. They ate all of your buds, and then they became little white butterflies. Is basically the science of it. So first thing I would do is send somebody to us or a D&B or whatever, or your local garden center of your choice, and then go to the insecticides and figure out if you're doing granular or water soluble, and figure out what addresses budworm. But what would be your tips?
There's two routes. Essentially, you can spray or you can do a systemic. Any chewing insects, caterpillars, things that actually chew into the plant, they're going to be best controlled by a systemic, which is a chemical that you put into water typically, and you water it into that plant. You drench it. So you're soaking that plant. The plant absorbs it through its roots and systemically brings it up through its entire body, so that anytime it's bitten into, there's poison in that bite, so that this insect is poisoned that way, right? And then there's the spray on kind of pesticides, which are typically, they either work on contact with the insect, like as soon as the insect walks across that chemical, it's poisoned or going to get sick, or it has residual chemistry activity. So if you spray it up to 2 or 3 weeks, any bug that encounters that residue on the plant will become poisoned enough to die, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
you have spray on, and then you have outside in, inside out.
Yeah, which would be 2 ways to get at a bug.
Sure.
So if you had a bug that applied to, that would be the best case scenario.
Yeah. In general, there are a lot of chemicals that are labeled as safe for like vegetable gardens and things like that are systemics. I am wary of that. Like anytime an insecticide or a pesticide is fully absorbed into the plant, that makes me really wary of it. I feel better about sprays for some reason, because your fruit isn't on the leaf, right? Like, so if you're spraying the leaves before it fruits, like your fruit's going to be relatively clean of pesticides.
That's fair.
So that's just me. That's not like a label thing. That's not anything that was ever taught to me. That's just my ethics with pesticide use, right? Like,
that's fair.
I wouldn't eat anything that has been drenched with a pesticide. However, there are those that are listed as safe according to whatever regulating agency, the FDA. But I use sprays.
That one might be at the USDA.
It's probably all of them.
It's probably both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DEA, ISDA. It's
yeah.
regulatory garbage. I don't care. They communicate with each other. We don't have to worry about it. But anyway, so budworms. Back to budworms. I spray for budworms. I use it's not even a chemical. It's called BT. And you know what that is? I'm sure you can spout it off. Yeah.
No.
Bacillus thuringiensis, Jennifer.
I have no idea what that means.
Okay.
That's all you. That's a 10. That might be a $15 word.
At least. We're not keeping score today. I'm too lazy. I didn't even bring notes. We both look zapped, by the way.
Yeah, we
this
do
is hilarious.
Look zapped.
I'm like, we're both.
we're like, so it's the end of April when we're filming this, and we got our butt wholly kicked in events, and we had one last night. We have another one tomorrow. It's just that time of year.
You want to hear a fact that'll make you hate me?
Let's hear it.
I have 6 days until May.
I don't like you at all now.
You're welcome. I told the sales office, and it was met with just as much enthusiasm as that.
Like I might go slash your tires when we leave.
But yeah, so we're in our peak season. We're exhausted.
That feels very violent, and I'm not going to do that. I don't have enough energy for that.
It's kind of tough to slash a tire right here. It's not just like a movie kind of job where it's
not
like
the same thing.
A lot of muscle. I don't know.
We're not doing that because the rubber costs money.
Okay.
Damn.
Rewind.
Rewind. Budworm.
Bacillus thuringiensis, otherwise known as BT, capital B, lowercase t. You'll see it in any kind of pest control shelves in your garden centers.
Okay.
It's kind of made a research recently. It's considered an organic method because Bacillus thuringiensis is a bacteria. And what it does is it infects the guts of caterpillars and I think a few other chewing insects, but it is really
Is this tied to BT corn?
targeted, huh?
Is it tied to BT corn?
I don't think so. I think that BT corn is that's a genome or something like a.
Actually, it has to do with acid and alkaline.
Okay, then no, it's not. BT is just it's a pest control.
There's a little bit more to it. I'm oversimplifying. Like BT corn, they say that there's Roundup in it. And I'm using air quotes for those who are listening because it's complete bullshit. There's not Roundup in it. It's the human digestive system who eats corn, as well as animals. We have an alkaline-based digestive system. Bugs have an acid-based digestive system. When they eat this BT corn that's said to, quote unquote, by the naysayers, have Roundup in it, it actually just uses basic chemistry and it puts alkaline into them and the bugs blow up because they have an acid-based system and it goes in opposition. I don't understand the science of it. Don't ask me.
Sure.
I am a marketing degree.
We should dig into that. It might be BT because BT does attack the digestive system of these bugs.
So it might be
if they
based
have
on
modified
alkalinity.
genetically that crop to express the BT gene.
It might be something that's
it might be. Maybe that would be better for our GMO podcast that we'll have in the off season.
We will because we have
to.
I have been having a lot of GMO conversations just today based on petunias and potatoes. So that's the fun stuff I get to talk to about. And that's why when I run into somebody and they're like, "So my geraniums," and I'm like, "I am trying to buy my eggs, lady, in the grocery store. Can you come to the greenhouse and ask somebody this way? Hell, call the greenhouse. We'll help."
You need like a cloak in public, like a Dementor, hooded thing. That your face is just a shadow.
Why do you think I cut all my hair off? I wear my sunglasses, and now everybody's used to the hair now. So I'm gonna have to just start wearing hats and sunglasses and look like a celebrity.
Or a cloak.
Yeah,
like a
cloak.
Dark black cloak.
It's too fucking hot for that.
Okay, a white one. Okay, we're getting podcasty.
Going back to Budworm. Okay, so we've got
BT. It's a great product. Monterey makes it. Bonide makes it. All these big chemical. I think Bio Advanced makes some kind of it. It's considered organic and it is more effective than any of the synthetic pesticides. Get it. You will need to spray it probably once a week on your petunias, but if you're paying top dollar for your petunias,
you're gonna want to.
It's good. You use it kind of preventatively, right? Like it's better to just do this and expect failure instead of because by the time the budworms have stripped all of your petunias, it's too late.
Yeah, it is.
They're already adults. They're laying eggs by that point. Like you
need to get train. You're in reaction mode, not proactive.
So yeah, if you were in an ideal world, you'd preventatively start applying BT on your petunias throughout the year. Follow the label. I know BT is short-lived once it's exposed to the sun, but I think you can apply it up to once a week if I'm not mistaken. But again, read the label. Read the whole damn label from A to Z. The whole label.
Whole thing. Have a cup of coffee.
Read the whole instructions before you start step one. Remember that from elementary school? Yeah. It's really important with it.
It's like reading a recipe before you start cooking.
Exactly.
Because you'll be like, cool, dinner's in 30 minutes. And you're like, oh, I should have started 5 hours ago. Like, come on.
Because you missed that line that was like, oh, and then take your bacon jam glaze that's been simmering for 8 hours according to the instructions, add that to the recipe now. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
Or must chill for 4 hours before baking. You're
there you
like,
go.
Oh, crap. So you
let rise.
Details. So same concept. And to be really blunt and straight up, baking and cooking is chemistry.
Oh yeah.
So so if you're like, oh God, we're talking science. It's like, no. If you cook dinner at night, you do this all the time.
Yep.
It's just with different ingredients that you're not fluent with. That's really what it comes down to. Okay, so budworm. The other thing I tell people with budworm is make sure that you've got a good feed program on your petunias so that they are prolifically blooming.
Let's talk
because
about
that'll counteract it.
Okay, so I'm organically minded, natural-ish minded. Okay, I have a lot of rules.
I believe in chemicals.
We will not hash out my ethics. They're very blurry. I am on neither side. I'm pretty centrist with the way I use it. I use organic and pretty relatively safe methods when I can, and I go big guns on pesticides when I have to. Okay, but oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about petunia feed.
Caffeinate. Okay, so as part of my organic style, my policy is if you have strong, healthy flowers, you are going to have substantially less insect problems or disease problems. Those things, like human beings, we know that when we're stressed out, looking like these two, you're much more prone to get sick. Do you ever get stress colds? Or cold sores or any of that?
The second I take a breath, I get dog ass sick.
Yeah.
Like
when I was in school, if I worked too hard and like was just not giving myself breaks, I would get a stress cold and it would knock me out for like 4 or 5 days. And it was just my body being like,
you need a break.
Take a break. So same thing, essentially. Like when a plant is stressed, when it's weak, when it's thirsty, when it's hungry, it is so prone to everything that can attack it. You know, aphids, budworms, fungus, bacteria. That's how nature works. It preys upon the weak. I hate to call it out like that.
No, that's survival of the fittest. That's how that works.
A wolf goes after the elk calf that's like injured or sick, or the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
And so if you're an aphid, you're going to go after the most neglected petunia in the nursery or the garden. You're going to go after the weakened one. So I just want to emphasize fertilizing, having a regular program of fertilizing on your annual flowers is of utmost importance. You can almost fend everything off just by doing that.
That's true. Also, you can have a host plant that plays as distractant. So
a what?
A host plant. So
yeah. I really like seeing what the greenhouses are doing with that kind of stuff too.
So I do it in my own yard. I hate roses. I think we've talked about this. I'm a rose hater because I grew up in the country, and every time that they cut the alfalfa, all of the aphids would come straight to the roses. So I buy this 1951 home in the middle of Twin Falls. Great, fine, wonderful. It has established roses that are probably 70 years old, along with the evergreens. And I'm not a huge evergreen fan either, so that's fun. I have these 2 roses. I've pulled them out several times. They keep coming back. I have not gotten the rootstock out.
Those ones in front of the bed? Yeah. I've sprayed those with some serious stuff myself.
They came back again.
I know. And I had a feeling they would.
Bastards. Anyhow, because of that, I'm almost happy they're there because they keep the aphids off my flowers because they love those roses. So I don't have to actually treat any of my flowers when I have a couple of bugs. I'm like, they're going to go right to the roses.
Yeah.
Now I'll cut the roses down so they're never a distractant and they're never blooming, anything like that. I'll just go chop. But it helps control it. So you can have a host plant. Now that said, most, if you're looking for an aphid or if you're like suspicious that you have aphids, they can be up to 3 different colors, usually around here. They can be light green, brown, or black. Mm-hmm. And you usually find them on the underside of new growth.
Yep.
That's where you can find them and you can see them. That's the other thing with the human eye.
Those are a pretty easy identifier.
Yeah. Versus like with thrip and spider mite, it's just not the same. You can see evidence of.
You can see spider mites if you've got a good eye,
and you know what you're looking for. It's not just spiders.
And you can feel thrips before you see them.
I know. Thripper. Little.
I know. I hate them.
I wouldn't say that that's something that home gardener really has to. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
As a home gardener, I do not attack thrip. I go after cabbage bugs and budworm and aphids.
Well,
as a home gardener, those are and earwigs.
Yeah.
Earwigs is another one for me.
Thrip is really small, and I think it's pretty easily controlled with like predatory insects, which we have plenty of in Idaho.
Yeah, so it must self-regulate itself out in the gardens. In the greenhouses, it's a lot different. It's a lot different in a greenhouse. Thrip and spider mite are a thing in the greenhouse. So.
Yeah, this is like allowing like a disease like MRSA, a bacteria to flourish in a hospital. Like it's catered to letting that thing go wild. And that's what a greenhouse is for bugs.
I do not know enough about MRSA to understand that reference.
So it's It's just a staph infection.
Okay.
Well, staph has been living in hospitals long enough now. It has evolved around all antibiotics. It's really difficult to treat now, and it's getting more difficult to treat because with all these sick people and it being one of the most common bacterial infections, just a skin wound of any sort getting infected, it's evolved in this like perfect host building for it. Like hospitals across the globe. I mean, no single anyone is responsible for this. It's just
the
having all
nature
these
of the
sick
beast.
people in and out, having all these antibiotics in everyone's system, in and out, multi-generational. It's created this perfect breeding ground for this
Evolution.
I think, what does MRSA stand for? It's like methicillin resistant Staph aureus. Yeah. So it's antibiotic resistant.
That's a $20 word.
Yeah.
Good job.
Oh yeah.
Jesus,
anyway,
are you keeping track, Zach? Because I'm losing this one badly.
We're not keeping track today. But so yeah, like our experience of bugs is like, it's business. It's like, we have to nip this in the bud right now.
We have to control it.
In a home garden, I always just kind of let things slide, except if that's in my garden.
Well, and so I'll tell you,
maintaining...
I was behind on my own gardening 2 weeks ago, and I had cold crop. So I had cabbage, broccoli, and I went to put the cabbage and broccoli in and was like, wait, I don't want to battle the bugs that eat the cabbage, the beetles or whatever they
earwigs.
Is it earwigs?
Mm-hmm,
is it earwigs? It is earwigs.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is May brain. That's what's happening, even though it's not May yet. It is May when we're listening to this. Anyhow, I hit a point and was like, am I willing to give up that garden space? So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to plant every single color of carrot I just bought. And I have black carrots. I'm so black nebulas. Very exciting. I had to go buy them at D&B because we didn't quite have that large selection. And I was so stoked because I got purples and reds and all sorts of things. So I planted just more seed stuff because I didn't want to battle it. And earwigs are definitely a thing. And I have snails and slugs. Well, I have snails.
You have
really
snails.
bad. I have snails.
You were in the one block of Twin Falls
that has massive snails. I'll go out my front step and see snail trails everywhere. And this is usually in the morning. I water in the middle of the night. If you work for the city, I do it illegally, and I'm sorry, and I don't apologize. But I like to water in the middle of the night because then I wake up and everything's watered, and I don't have to worry about it. And then I don't know what day I'm watering on either, which also plays to other things. I'm an inherent rule breaker. Most people know that about me. So with that, I wake up and there's snails everywhere, like all the time. So snails and earwigs are definitely a thing for me. And with earwigs, I can use diatomaceous earth. So diatomaceous earth, we talked about it earlier, it's like mica shells ground up really, really tiny, right?
They're diatoms, which are little glass critters, actually.
See, I've explained this wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
But it acts as mica because it's shaly, right?
I see what you're getting at. It's like it's a fiberglassy type of structure.
Correct.
It's like shards. It's
exactly.
Yeah. And what it is it's silicon dioxide. It's glass. Those diatoms, they're sea creatures. Okay. They are made of glass. They have a glass shell. It's like,
so when it gets wet, does it lose its?
It does, because when it gets wet, it's microscopic shards of glass, essentially. So that just really easily falls down in between the soil cracks.
Well, and I'm thinking so that's literally I would put it on my door thresholds to keep ants out and earwigs and all of that. And to me, it's very satisfying to think of an earwig that is a pest for me, crawl across that and its innards are just ripped to shreds. Like we were saying, we need those micro art so we can actually see it. But I bet we could ask AI to do that for us. It would be really generate one.
Print it on a shirt next year.
If you are in a dry spout, right, and you're not putting it in your soil, you're still mitigating for it, for bugs. I mean, like me doing it around the thresholds of my house, that works. It's not always going to work in your flower beds, though.
It's really, and I say this about any organic method that's out there, organic fertilizer, organic composting, organic pest control. The trade-off here is that you're going in a more natural method, and the trade-off is that it takes time. More and more applications or more time. And in this case, diatomaceous earth requires repeat applications, almost every time you water, because if you water, like, depending on how you spread that, like, it's going to wash it out. So you have to stay up with it. Earwigs are just a problem in southern Idaho. There's no way about it.
There really isn't. I used to have passion flowers. They're just absolutely beautiful. And I was so excited. Grew them in the greenhouse, took them to my house. I didn't get one bloom one season.
So just stripped them immediately.
They just stripped them. They must have just tasted like straight up candy.
Well, I'm sure they do.
Well, they're gorgeous too. And that's the other thing is every bug has kind of like a host that they love. So like with the aphids, they love tomatoes. They love petunias. They like begonias, it turns out. We learned that recently as we had to do a little bit of pest control. They love roses. There's plants they love. Hops are thrip candy, like you would not believe. Same with Lonicera and
are you thrips or aphids? Sorry,
thrips.
Oh, okay.
But aphids, I
Verbena
mentioned
too.
Yeah, there's just certain plants they love, and it just must be a flavor.
It's a flavor, a texture, or like a
nutrient.
If you narrowed it down, you could find some patterns across like plant families that are more susceptible.
I can see that.
It's coevolution. This is like,
well, and here's the
this
interesting.
is much older than us.
Yes. Well, and I've talked to my buddy, Dr. Oliver here that works for Amalgamated Sugar. He came and did he's a Bavarian plant pathologist, I think he's a plant daddy, like on a real scale. And they call him the sugar daddy in the sugar beet industry. He's known as the sugar daddy. He's a funny German guy. Anyhow, he came and did a talk at INLA talking about the chemical research and how long it takes when you're addressing a chemical now, like a bug now, versus when the chemical is actually released, and how much evolution has happened in that pest in that time. Sometimes by the time it's released to the market, it's irrelevant because the bug has already developed an immunity to it.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's the other thing. So something you've always used, the bug might develop an immunity because they evolve a lot faster than a human or an animal.
Sure.
Because they have a lot shorter life cycles, so they can evolve a lot faster.
Yeah. I think a common misconception about evolution and as far as resistance and things is that it's not really taking place in the scale of your garden. So like, don't be scared because you're going to immunize your pest. It's really, this is just a human condition problem. This is all of us with this tech all at once. It's not, there's little we can actually do now that is kind of set in motion as far as
kind of like global
we
warming.
are training bugs to be resistant to chemicals, chemical pesticides, and there's just no way about it. And that kind of guarantees that new tech will keep coming out. But that's also what kind of fuels my ethical code of like, go organic if possible.
Yeah, because then it helps quit perpetuating the cycle that is kind of accelerating and adding fuel to that fire.
So I'm going to tell you guys a secret, and it's not a salesperson thing to do, but the first line of defense with any of these bugs we've talked about, particularly aphids or anything that crawls, spider mites, aphids, just soapy water. Soapy water will go quite a
soapy water, and the other secret to it is put a little olive oil into it.
There's all sorts of variations. Some people suggest like lemon juice or salt or cayenne pepper. These things all kind of have a different relevance as far as what you're targeting. Yeah. But anytime, if I get aphids and stuff on my house plants, like I have enough house plants, to be honest with you, can't afford that much pesticide every year. So my first line of defense is just like a teaspoon of Dawn dish soap in a quart spray bottle thing of water.
The only thing I would tell you is don't spray it on them when the sunlight is hitting it directly, because that will give you cosmetic damage.
Yes. And there are some caveats here, that I have to talk about. And I do encourage you to rinse that off kind of after you're done with it. Like let the soap residue dry the plant out. It's not super important, but I do because of the problems you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, because
I
any
don't
kind
rinse
of
it off.
coating. Yeah.
But I'm also not doing this to flowers. I'm usually doing it to vegetables.
Yeah. So that has its place in house plants. I will say outside, it's a little bit different ballgame out there. Okay. Soap's not going to have any any benefit outside really, because it's gonna
That's where the
immediately
olive oil
fall off the plant as soon as it gets watered.
That's why I say olive oil, because olive oil and Dawn dish soap together with a little bit of with water, with actually more water than olive oil or dish soap, will actually suffocate any of the crawlings and to actually kill them, which is tremendously helpful. Yeah. But again, look underneath new growth, and that's usually where you can find the bug damage.
Yeah. Neem is kind of promising. It's natural. I actually like the smell of it. I think it's offensive to some people, but to me, it smells
gasoline.
It smells like herby to me. I don't know. I just like it. It smells almost like tea tree.
I used to love the smell of gas when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, that's fine too.
Very unusual.
But I think neem's a good way to control aphids. All right, we're at our 30-minute mark. So what other bugs do we need to like fast address? I want to say slugs. If you have slugs or snail problems, you are watering incorrectly.
Correct.
You need to water from the hours of 4 to 6 a.m. so that the ground is not saturated at nighttime, because that's where they move. That's what their little bodies.
I got a sprinkler guy coming today.
Move across.
I'll adjust mine to the.
Have him kick your times to the very early morning. That way, that your ground and your plants are predominantly dry at night. That will it won't eliminate all slugs, and you're never going to eliminate all pests ever. Get that out of your head. But you can significantly set slugs and snails back. The other thing is mulch. If you have like bark mulch, that's kind of like safe space for them. So decrease your frequency of watering. Water deeper, more infrequently, so that mulch isn't always wet.
I can handle that.
Snakes love, or snakes too, but snails love moisture.
Well,
if you
and
dry out
with
the
snails
environment, they won't.
Well, no, I'm talking slugs. I always joke, open a beer and kind of pinch out the top and plant it with just like this much, like inch, half inch above. The slugs will go to the beer.
They like
and they will drown themselves and dissolve.
Earwigs are prone to that too. I don't know if it's beer that you use for earwigs. I think.
And if you're trying to get earwigs like out of your vegetables, so you just harvested a head of cauliflower, get a bowl with a little bit of vinegar in it in the sink and just drop the fruit into it, and they hate the vinegar and they'll swim right out. That's how you can clean all the bugs out of your produce.
Broccoli,
same.
Oh, broccoli is just like a tree for earwigs. It's
disgusting. They love it. So just get a little bit of white vinegar in water and put the head in there, and you'll get all your critters out. So that's a good way to do it.
I've researched earwigs for a long time. Okay, the only thing that really put them into place was chickens. And I mean, I've used all variety of pesticides, nothing diatomaceous earth, all the things we've talked about. The insect granules from High Yields did a pretty good job.
I like those.
I do too, just because it's really broad purpose and it's easy. And it's veggie safe too.
And it covers most of the critters that you're dealing with.
Yeah. But the best thing I found for earwigs is to actually get a roll up newspaper, soak it in water, and leave it out at night near your vegetables that they're attacking. They will hotel up in it. Like thousands of earwigs will line that newspaper wad, pick it up in the morning, bag it, burn it, dispose of it. It's pretty effective at getting rid of a lot of them all at once.
That's a new one.
But and they also keep that in mind too. Like earwigs, like roly-polies, they want to be protected, relatively wet. They want to be kind of pinched between two surfaces. So if you've got like pavers laying on soil, the earwigs are going to be housed under that. You lift up a paver, you're going to see earwigs and roly-polies scatter.
Yeah.
So remove those kind of things from your garden. You know, don't give them a place to live, or at least give them a perimeter of like open space.
Yeah.
Because bugs like Adams are lazy.
Okay.
And I don't think they'll walk further than they have to.
No, they're not going to. They're going to walk to the furthest or to the nearest food source and stop.
Yeah. But I heard that newspaper trick from some old gal that I talked to years ago at a garden center, and I've used it a few times and it works. But I don't know.
There must be something in the newspaper itself.
I've also learned earwigs have like locations too, because I've lived at houses where they're just an infested like problem, and then I've lived at houses with like I see one a year. So I'm at a 1 a year house right now. I'm lucky.
I'm not.
I shouldn't have said that out loud. That's going to change.
Yeah, that is going to change. You said it out loud. There's a full moon. You can release that thought still.
All right. We better wrap this up because you and I have to get back to work.
Yes, we do. We have one more to film too. So with that, Do your research. Know thy enemy.
And I have bug classes, I think a few weeks in May.
Wednesday afternoons, look at Facebook.
Wednesday at 4:30.
Yep. And they're free.
Yep.
Come and ask all your questions. And with that, we invite you to go live life in full color because plain is pretty boring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.